It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Charleston Southern head women's basketball coach, Coach Clarisse Garcia. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm awesome. Great day to you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in your coaching career?
Yeah, well, I played in college. I, grew up playing a lot of different sports, but then basketball just kind of gripped my heart. And I ended up playing in college and had zero aspirations to get into coaching. It was not something that was on my radar. I had never considered it. I think maybe two people when I was in college were like, "Hey, have you ever thought about coaching?" And I said, no. I was on a broadcast journalist track. I wanted to be on ESPN. I wanted to be on Sports Center. And then fast forward to when I graduated, there were no jobs. And so through a different series of events, I got connected with at that time, the head coach at the University of Pittsburgh, Agnes Baronato. And she called me and said, "Hey, my best friend needs a graduate assistant. Would you be interested?" And I said, I think. She said, "Well, let me put it to you this way." She said, "If you get in it and love it, you're in. And if you get in it and hate it, you at least get your master's paid for." And I was like, "Well, I'm an opportunist." So that's kind of the door that opened for me. And the coaching profession has been gracious to me, and it's been an awesome journey.
Of course, what was it like playing for Villanova?
Yeah, well, I tore my ACL first day of practice freshman year of college. So I spent a lot of my career just trying to rehab and get back. But being a part of a program that has that much history and that is that family oriented, for me now as a head coach, I want to create that type of experience for my student athletes. And I always tell them, I said, I had a great collegiate experience and you should as well. So whatever I can do to create a family environment that's caring and competitive, I'm going to do it.
Of course, what were some of your accomplishments throughout your Villanova career?
Yeah, so the main ones were obviously being a great teammate, meeting some of my great friends that played there. I was able to be on. I was at highly academic, so I was able to be on the Big East academic team. I was a captain my senior year, so it was a lot of the things that not necessarily like, oh, I scored so many points in a game and all that, but it was more of the little things behind the scenes.
How was that experience like getting to put on your collegiate jersey for Villanova?
Yeah, it was awesome. I just remember being able to put it on for the first time. And I think it was actually it's probably for our Midnight Madness. I think we called it Hoops Mania then. And just being a part of a big basketball community where, it's not necessarily a huge school, but it is a great community. It was surreal. I remember putting that jersey on for the first time and thinking, wow, I've dreamt about this.
Of course, how was it like competing in the NCAA tournament in 2004?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. So the funny thing was we were one seat away from being sent out to California. So so we ended up getting sent to Ames, Iowa. And so none of us were overly excited about being sent to, middle of nowhere, basically. But the experience was great. We won our first round game, and then we ended up losing to, I think it was Purdue, that second round game. So, it is, as the tournament says, you win in advance, and we won in advance, and then we didn't win.
Of course, leaving college and getting into coaching, what was it like going to Seton Hall?
And so it's Seton Hill. So it was a Division II program right outside the Pittsburgh area. But it is funny because everyone thought I was at Seton Hall. So we used to get a lot of their mail, a lot of their film exchange at the time. That's how it was coordinated, and recruiting. Recruits would send their film to us and vice versa. So it was a very neat experience. The head coach for whom I worked was formerly the head coach at the University of Miami for many, many, many years. And she's an ACC legend, and she just had built the program up and was very successful. And so she had then taken a D2 job, and she was my first boss. And so the way the Big East was structured, where I played at Villanova, Miami and Boston College were still in the Big East my freshman year. And so her team came up to play us at Villanova my freshman year. And I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of the little crazy Italian lady on the other end that was, hopping up and down the sidelines. And, you never know how your paths will cross again. But that's who I ended up working under in my first position. And she taught me everything. She was very, very, very open to me being able to be incorporated into every aspect of the program. I mean, I was able to do recruiting, and I did scouting reports, and, player workouts and plan practice. And so she's just someone that showed me what it was like to run a program. And a lot of people don't always get that experience as a grad assistant, but I was blessed to have worked for her.
Of course, leaving there, what was it like taking your next position as an assistant at Stetson?
Yeah, so that was a big jump. I mean, obviously you jump levels, and the nature of the talent you recruit is obviously higher. And so it was a great experience, and that I learned a lot. Our head coach was very detailed and very focused on the defensive aspect of the game. And so I was able to learn a lot through that experience. And then that experience opened the door for then me to take the head job at Palm Beach Atlantic University after that season.
Of course, what was that experience like, becoming a head coach for the first time at Palm Beach?
Yes. So you always hear the phrase, one seat over is very different. And so for me, you're never sure. It was, in my mind, something that I had wanted, but then you kind of second guess sometimes, and you say, oh, well, am I ready? And so one of my mentors said, are you ever ready? And so I had also heard a speech one time, this very awesome woman, and I can't remember who it was at the time, but she was a broadcast journalist, but she always said, you say yes and figure it out. And that stuck with me. And so for that position, I just said yes, and I figured it out. And I knew I'm very strong in my faith, and I knew God was calling me down there. And if he called me, he'd equip me. And so he did. And it was amazing. We did not win many games that first year, but what we did accomplish was something really special for our program. The school itself had yet to join a conference, so we were an independent school. And so what we did was found all the other independent schools in pretty much our geographic area. So I think there were probably 8 teams that didn't have a conference tournament. So we wanted to create that experience for our players. And in order to win that conference tournament, well, it's not conference, but the independent, national championship tournament, whatever you want to call it, you had to win 3 games in 3 days. And so our players just pushed and pushed and pushed, and we were able to accomplish that in our first year.
Of course, how is that like, obviously coaching in the independent side as a head coach?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you have to, when I got the job, the schedule, the games that had been scheduled, they weren't set up to help us get to the NCAA tournament. So you have to play a certain number of Division II opponents. You have to play a certain number of in-region Division II opponents. And so the schedule is not structured for that. So I had to come in, cancel a bunch of games, reschedule, create the independent tournament. And then if I would have stayed there long enough, our vision was, if we didn't ultimately end up joining the conference, having the NCAA recognize the independent tournament as worthy to receive an automatic bid. So that was kind of our vision with it.
What was that like, obviously going to the SEC and getting to coach at Alabama Crimson Tide?
Yeah, so someone had asked me, they said, you could be in Palm Beach forever. And I was like, Palm Beach is amazing. And I said, I won't ever leave unless a BCS school comes knocking. And so in comes Alabama. And so that was a really neat story. It's kind of a long story, so I won't go into all of it. But in essence, I had gone up to recruit at the various state tournaments, and I found myself, in the Florida one, the Georgia high school state one, and then someone at the Georgia tournament said, "Hey, you should go up to the Alabama tournament. It's not that far from Georgia." And mind you, our little D2 budget, I was driving, so I was like, "What's another 2 hours?" I already have probably like 12 hours to get back to Palm Beach, so what's another couple? So anyway, I was at the Alabama State High School tournament, and I was waiting to talk to the two high school coaches that had competed for the championship in the highest division. And while I was standing there, the head coach from Alabama walked up, and we just started talking. I'm a high extrovert. I'll talk to anybody. I enjoy people. And so when we were able then to all talk with the two head coaches that had competed, little did we know that we would be the four coaches that would be on staff at Alabama in May of that year. So it was kind of a surreal moment because the head coach at Alabama had hired myself and those two high school coaches. So it was just a really neat way to be added to that. I think probably obviously the biggest difference is just the resources. You go from very limited resources to almost unlimited. And for me, that was very fun. And I really felt that we recruited well, we put on great visits, we really helped the team out. So it was just it was a very great experience. I mean, obviously then going to Alabama football games is, on another level. So I always enjoyed having recruits in so that we kind of show off what we have.
Of course, what were some of your accomplishments during your time at Alabama?
Yeah, so we did pretty well non-conference. We went to Hawaii and we won a tournament there. But then once we got to SEC conference, we were kind of middle of the pack. We had some solid wins and then, some tough losses, but, we were able to have some players named to the all SEC teams and garner those sorts of accolades, and just being able to work with them every day was a special experience.
How is that like leaving Alabama to come to Wake Forest in North Carolina?
It was a hard decision. I mean, our staff had gotten released because our head coach was asked to go back to the administrative side of the department. So the new head coach brought her own staff, which is what we all do. We always bring our own people. So, you don't fault anyone for that. So I was attending a kind of like a leadership conference for coaches and was able to get connected with Jen Hoover. And she had an opening on her staff and went through the interview process with her and just knew it was going to be a really great fit. So I spent 3 years there. And for looking at my career, you can see that I hadn't been anywhere 3 years because the good Lord just kept moving me. So for me to be there 3 years, it was really an awesome experience. We were able to, recruit some of the best players that have come through there to wear Wake Forest jersey. We won some tournaments. We were able to get into some postseason play. So it was a really great experience working with Jen and that staff.
Of course, what was that like getting to coach teams like in the ACC versus your time in the SEC?
Yes, well, I think both conferences are exceptionally special. You sometimes think of the SEC being more of a football conference and the ACC being more of a basketball conference. However, I just know from my personal experience, the SEC was a very big gauntlet. You could not circle anyone on the SEC schedule and say, oh, this is not an automatic win. Because if you approached any game like that, you were down 20 instantly. So I just felt that the competition and the fierceness and the nature of the SEC was a little bit more grueling once you got into conference.
What was that like leaving Wake Forest to go back to the SEC to go to Auburn?
Well, for me, it was a little weird because when you are on one side of the Alabama-Auburn rivalry, you don't switch typically. So for me, that was very weird. At Alabama, you say roll tide. And I had left Alabama and still cheered for their football team for all 3 years I was at Wake Forest. I really, Nick Saban was awesome to us when we would bring recruits in. So I'm a big Nick Saban fan. So I had cheered actually for Alabama that, January, February for the national championship game. So then when Auburn came calling in May, I think April, May of that year, I was kind of shocked and I said, oh man. So I just knew though I did want to get back to the SEC, and from being in the state, I loved, just knowing that the college teams are in essence, professional teams. You're not competing with another professional team. So I loved that. I loved that it was, a little closer to Atlanta, because that's a great recruiting area. So I felt like we could be very successful there. And so, it was hard to leave Jen. It was hard to leave Wake Forest because I built great relationships there. But I knew it was time to get back to the SEC.
Of course, what were some of your accomplishments at Auburn?
Yeah, so we signed top 25 recruiting classes. So we were successful in recruiting. We got some really great players in there. We made it to the NCAA tournament. So it was just a really good time to be a part of that program. And then unfortunately for us, now that, the transfer portal exists and, players can transfer and play right away, we experienced some transfers the last probably 2 years. Of those really great kids that we had recruited. And so our success, is dependent on having great players. And so it was hard to lose those ones because we knew we would be really successful with them. But, we wish them best in other programs, but we did take a hit with that.
What was that feeling like getting the call from Charleston Southern to become their next head coach?
Yeah, so I was very excited about it. I wasn't sure what was next. I figured I would stay in coaching. I had some other opportunities that I was pursuing as well. So I wasn't sure, okay, will I stay an assistant? Will I make the jump and go to a head coach seat again? I was in the mix for also another head job at that time as well. And so I wasn't really sure, which door is going to open. However, when the position was offered, I knew it was going to be a perfect fit because, it is a Division I school. It's in a beautiful city. The school is a Christian university. And so it aligns perfectly with my values. And I knew it was going to be a rebuild, and I've been a part of rebuilds, so I'm not going to shy away from hard work. So that has been really a neat experience for me, being able to go into year 2, having really poured our hearts into rebuilding this.
Of course, how was that like, obviously becoming a head coach for the second time in your coaching career after your time ACC and SEC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was able, just being at the different levels, you have a philosophy when you become a head coach, right, of how you want to do it. And so for me, it was great to be able to learn from 3 other people, 3 other programs, 3 other ways of doing it, and then being able to tweak the philosophy and really kind of fine tune it into something that's a lot more probably consistent with who I am as a human and what I want it to accomplish. So that has been fun, just being able to now set culture based off that, where we align our priorities, and how we have set the stage for the success of our student athletes.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've started to build for, obviously, Charleston Southern?
Yeah, so if you see anything social media related, or if you see anything that we put out into the community, even our t-shirts, we always say climb the ladder. And so for us, that's doing the right things the right way with the right people, right? And so ultimately in basketball, when you climb a ladder, you are cutting down nets. So that means you have done what it takes to do to get to the top of your conference and then to garner that success. So for us, it's more than just the basketball nets. What is it like professionally for these players someday to climb their ladder? Like, what is your ladder that you're going to climb that is going to be successful for you? So we've really started to help them understand, it's a process. You have to take steps every day. We want them to do something to help themselves every day, right? And so then we've introduced to them to team basketball. So for us, who are we going to be as a team? What are we going to be about? What's our stance? How do we play? And so for us, team stands for tenacity, which the world belongs to the competitor. You just get after it. You're very determined. You don't relinquish position. Excellence. We always talk about success follows excellence. And if you can be excellent in the classroom and you can be excellent on the court, you naturally will find yourself successful. And then accountability. Pat Summitt, who was the head coach at the University of Tennessee for years and was exceptionally successful there, was always known to say that championship teams police themselves. And so for us, as our players, understanding the culture, understanding what we're trying to build and driving culture and pushing each other to do the same. And then with our mindset, we just want to give our best self 100% of the time, to have that winner's mindset. And if we bring in the right people and everyone gives their best self every day, then we can build something special and we will certainly climb.
Of course, what does a typical game day look like as a head coach versus players?
Yeah, so obviously when it's a home game, they have to go to class. So they don't all of a sudden just get this experience of, oh, I'm a professional and I don't have to handle my business. So they still have to attend class. And then during the day, we'll usually do a team shoot around and then a team pregame meal. And then they're on the court about 45 minutes before the game, getting some shots up, getting ready, going back over the game plan. I'll do groups in the locker room on game day before the game, just emphasizing with the position groups what we're trying to accomplish, what their goals are, what their tasks are, the players they're going to be guarding, and those sorts of things. And then once we get close to game, we meet as a team, pray, and then hit the court.
Of course, who are some of the teams that you face each week in your conference?
So we have a two game per week conference schedule. So we play on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So with 10 teams in our conference, we will play 18 games this year. So we will play everyone twice. So for us, those are teams like High Point and Gardner Webb and Radford and UNC Asheville, those sorts of teams.
What is that like, obviously, getting to go to Gardner Webb and get to play them?
Yeah, I mean, they're a very tough team. They have a wonderful head coach who is really changing the nature of the program and has been successful doing it in recruiting and how she's establishing their presence on the court. So it's a tough environment to play as far as just playing against tough players, but it's a good experience for our players.
Of course, how is that like playing in those non-conference games against UNC, Duke, and East Carolina?
Yeah, so those ones, I spent probably the majority of my career at that level. So for me, walking into a packed out arena, it's what we did for 10 years. So, however, for a lot of my players, they haven't yet had that experience. And so I always want to create a really good experience for our players. And one of them is to be able to play in front of big packed out arenas like that. And so, for them, it's not so much about, hey, we're playing the Dukes or the South Carolinas, like get over the name on the chest and just go be a competitor. Right. And so if we can get them to have that mindset through our non-conference schedule, then they'll be ready when it comes to conference play.
As a coach, what is it like stepping on the court and getting to coach in wins and stuff?
Say that again.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like on game day, being in that driver's seat, leading them to wins?
Yeah, so, obviously you spend time with your staff that week and you put together a game plan and, you articulate it to the players, you run them through it, you teach them, you tweak things. And then when it gets to the game, you make adjustments. And so that's always fun when, the players are playing at their best, their highest level, and we as a staff are able to make great adjustments in game.
What are some of your future plans for Charleston Southern?
Yeah, to win. We want to win the conference. It's not a one-time thing. We want to build a culture that supports that vision consistently. One of the strength coaches at Auburn always used to say, it's not about being consistent, it's about consistency over time. And so over time, we want to be able to, become one of the next powerhouses in the Big South.
What does the recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to go play college basketball?
Yeah, so we have the capability now to recruit from a few different areas other than just high school. And so aside from high school, you can recruit junior college transfer, and international. And so we are open to all of those. So pretty much now that we know how we're going to play, which is very up tempo, we're going to press, we know the nature and the type of player that we want to bring in. And so once we, go to the recruiting events and we look at the different talent, we build our lists and then we invite them to campus and communicate with them regularly. And then just see, are you a good fit for us? Are we a good fit for you?
Of course, as head coach, what is it like going out on the road and recruiting?
Yeah, so you don't go out as much as the assistants do, but you still do go out because at the end of the day, as a head coach, you have the final say in who we sign and who we don't. So it just depends on the time of year. So July is a big recruiting month. We're pretty much gone about 2 weeks out of July. The recruiting calendar is going to be changing though, so it'll look a little differently. But then once it becomes the season, it's a little harder to get out, but you may go to some tournaments or things like that. But for us, if we're going to recruit high school students, it's usually from AU.
Of course, what does the official visit look like at Charleston Southern?
Yeah, I mean, we want them to have a good experience. And so we schedule the visits so that they spend a lot of time with our players because those will be their future teammates and friends.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like getting to see them put on that jersey on that official visit and fall in love with the Charleston Southern colors?
Yeah, no, they always have a great time. I think we create a very good environment when we do photo shoots for them. So it is fun. We remind them that, hey, this could be you. And it's up to you if this is your vision. If your vision is our vision, then let's make it happen.
What advice would you give those prospective student athletes looking to play college basketball?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's not for the faint of heart. You have to be completely committed to wanting to do it every day, even when it's hard. And so we tell them, it's going to be something that will be very rewarding, but it is very hard. There are all levels for all players. So even if you don't become a Division I, BCS level prospect, an ultimate player, there is a level and a place for you. So just because you may not be one of the most highly recruited players, that doesn't mean you can't play in college, and that doesn't mean you can't help contribute to a successful program.
What advice would you give those college basketball players looking to play professionally, whether it's the WNBA, Athletes Unlimited, or even for Team USA?
Yeah, absolutely. I am always 100% advocate for playing beyond college for the ones that are talented enough to do so. There's a smaller handful, a smaller subset of the collegiate population that will play professionally. And anytime I've had players play professionally, it has been an experience for them, whether good or bad. They kind of create the experience. Getting them to that point of being a professional is part of our job to develop them. So we always talk to them about things that can get them fired, because at the end of the day, your performance is how you get paid and how they keep you on the team. And so getting them to that level of mindset and training and professional lifestyle. So I will always advocate for that. I've had a lot of players play professionally.
What advice would you give future coaches looking to get started in the industry and then become head coaches?
Yeah, everyone's journey is going to be different. You may have to get into it and not get paid. You may have to be very creative to get into it. I went the graduate assistant route, and that was not high paying initially, but you just stick with it and network with people and make sure that you're building your connections, because a lot of times it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so finding people with whom you can connect, whether that's going to work their camps or just stopping by and picking their brain, asking them to come to practice, just be open to go meeting people and just putting yourself in a position that will put you around people that are really established in the game. And then obviously just knowing that again, it's your work, it's your body of work, and it's who you're going to be. So if you translate being a hardworking player to being a hardworking assistant and ultimately maybe a head coach, then it will go well for you. But just knowing that the hours probably will never be in line with the pay.
Of course, what advice would you give those head coaches that are looking to lead their own program?
Yeah, say yes and figure it out. Lead from the heart. Just know that you are capable. If you are yourself, I always tell people that I'm encouraging, if you be yourself, right? If you boss yourself, right? If you believe in others and bring people along with you, you're going to have a better opportunity to be successful.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Charleston Southern women's basketball program at?
Yeah, so my personal social media is the same on all platforms. So it's Hoop Coach Garcia, and that's HoopCoachGarcia.
Thank you again, Coach Clarisse Garcia, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at Charleston Southern.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Clarisse Garcia, for your interview, and best of luck at your future at Charleston Southern.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.